bench above me. She'd left it there while grabbing tools to help me, or pretending to help anyway. Lisa's mechanical skills peaked at knowing where the gas pedal is. The notification sound came again, then again. "Honey, your phone's going crazy up here," I called out. "Just ignore it," she said from somewhere behind me. "Probably work stuff." But the buzzing continued, insistent and rhythmic. After the 7th or 8th notification, curiosity got the better of me. I slid out from under the car, wiped my hands on a shop rag, and glanced at the screen. That's when I saw the name that would haunt me for weeks: David Aldridge. The messages were preview snippets, but even those fragments made my stomach clench. "Can't wait to see you this weekend. The ring looks perfect in the photos. 3 months until we're officially—" I stared at that screen like it was written in a foreign language. Ring? 3 months until what? Ward? Did you find that socket wrench? Lisa's voice seemed to come from very far away. I set the phone down exactly where I'd found it and went back to the Honda. But my hands were shaking now, and the simple task of loosening a bolt felt impossible. My mind raced through explanations. Maybe David was a colleague planning his own proposal, asking Lisa for advice. Maybe it was some kind of work project with wedding industry clients. Maybe I was losing my mind. "Found it," I managed to say when Lisa returned. She picked up her phone without looking at it, slipped it into her back pocket, and handed me the wrench. "Thanks." I took the tool but couldn't meet her eyes. "Hey, who's David Aldridge?" The question came out before I could stop myself. Lisa's hand froze halfway to adjusting her ponytail. "David? Oh, he's a vendor for the Morrison account." "Why?" "Just saw the name on your phone. Seemed like he was messaging a lot." "Yeah, he's persistent. You know how these sales guys can be." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Always pushing for faster decisions." I nodded and went back to work, but something in her tone didn't sit right. Lisa's usually confident when discussing work. This felt different, evasive. That night after Lisa fell asleep, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The rational part of my brain insisted I was overreacting. Marriages go through rough patches. People get busy, distracted, maybe a little careless with their words. It didn't mean anything sinister was happening. But the other part of my brain, the part that notices when something's off in an engine just by the sound it makes, wouldn't let it go. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention. Not snooping exactly, just observing. Lisa had always been attached to her phone, but now she seemed practically glued to it. She'd step outside to take calls, claiming they were work-related. She'd text during dinner, apologizing and saying it was urgent client communication. And twice, I caught her smiling at her screen in a way that seemed too warm for business correspondence. Then there were the weekend trips. "My mother's having another episode," Lisa announced on Friday morning. "I need to drive up to Albany and help her sort through some medical stuff." Lisa's mother, Patricia, was a hypochondriac who'd been having episodes for as long as I'd known her. Usually, these visits involved a lot of hand-holding and listening to complaints about doctors who don't understand her condition. Lisa always came back exhausted and frustrated, but this time she seemed almost eager to go. "Want me to come with you?" I offered, though we both knew Patricia barely tolerated me on the best of days. "No, that's okay. You know how she gets with anyone who isn't me. I'll just go up Saturday morning and come back Sunday evening." She left early Saturday with an overnight bag and a travel mug of coffee. I spent the weekend catching up on work in the garage, trying not to think about David Aldridge or mysterious text messages or the way Lisa's smile had seemed different lately. Sunday evening, she returned looking refreshed rather than drained. Her cheeks had color, and she seemed almost cheerful as she unpacked her bag. "How's your mom?" I asked. "Oh, same as always, but I think we made some progress on organizing her medications. I nodded and helped her carry things upstairs. As she pulled clothes from her overnight bag, something caught my eye, a restaurant receipt that fluttered to the floor. I picked it up without thinking. Chez Laurent, Albany, Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Table for two. Fancy place, I said, holding up the receipt. Your mom's feeling better, I guess? Lisa glanced over, and her face went pale. Oh, that. Yeah, she insisted on going out, said she was tired of being cooped up. Patricia wanted to go to a French restaurant? I couldn't keep the skepticism out of my voice. Lisa's mother was notorious for her bland tastes and distrust of foreign food. She's trying to expand her horizons, Lisa said quickly, taking the receipt and crumpling it up. You know how she gets these sudden enthusiasms. I did know how Patricia got sudden enthusiasms. They usually involved new vitamin supplements or cable television psychics, not expensive French cuisine. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. After Lisa fell asleep, I quietly got up and went to the kitchen, where she always charged her phone overnight. My hands trembled as I picked it up and tried to unlock it. She'd changed the passcode. For 5 years, Lisa's phone passcode had been our anniversary date, 0814. Now the screen flashed red and demanded I try again. I tried our daughter Emma's birthday, nothing. Our son Jake's birthday, nothing. I was about to give up when I remembered something. David Aldridge. On impulse, I tried 0414, April 14th, a date that meant nothing to me but might mean everything to someone else. The phone unlocked. My heart hammered as I navigated to her messages. There was the usual work stuff, family group chats, conversations with friends. But when I scrolled to David Aldridge's thread, I found something that made my world tilt sideways. The messages went back months, hundreds of them, and they weren't about business. David, missing you already. Can't believe I have to wait 2 weeks to see you again. Lisa, I know, baby, but it'll be worth it. Just think, 3 more months and we won't have to hide anymore. David, I've been looking at venues in Cleveland. Found this perfect little place by the lake, very intimate. Lisa, send me pictures. I can't wait to start planning properly. David, have you thought more about the timing? When are you going to tell him? Lisa, soon. I just need to figure out the right way. Ward's going to be devastated, but he'll understand eventually. We've grown apart. He must feel it too. I sat in my kitchen at 2 a.m, reading message after message that detailed my wife's plans to leave me for a man I'd never heard of. They discussed apartments in Cleveland, where David apparently lived. They shared photos, him in business suits, her in dresses I'd never seen. They talked about meeting each other's families, about Lisa's concerns about uprooting Emma and Jake, about David's assurances that his job could support all of them comfortably. And then I found the photos that made everything real. Lisa wearing a diamond ring I'd never seen, her hand extended toward the camera. The caption read, "Can't wear it at home yet, but isn't it gorgeous?" David's response, "You're gorgeous. The ring is just a bonus." I scrolled back through months of messages, piecing together a timeline that explained everything. The weekend trips to help Patricia were actually trips to Cleveland. The work emergencies were David calling. The new clothes, the changed phone passcode, the distant smiles. It all made horrible sense now. But the worst part wasn't the affair itself. It was reading Lisa's messages about me. Ward's a good man, but he's so limited. He's content fixing cars and watching baseball. He has no ambition, no vision for something bigger. Sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating here, like I'm wasting my life in this small town with someone who'll never understand what I really want. He'll be fine eventually. Ward's the type who just accepts things and moves on. He's not a fighter. Not a fighter. I put the phone back on its charger and went upstairs. Lisa was sleeping peacefully, one arm draped across my pillow. Looking at her, I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not heartbreak. That would come later. This was something else, something calculating. She thought I wasn't a fighter. She thought I'd just accept this and move on quietly, maybe even make it easy for her by agreeing to an amicable divorce that let her start fresh with David in Cleveland. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I spent the rest of the night planning. By the time the sun came up, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Lisa Mitchell thought she was smart, conducting her affair through careful messages and secret weekend trips. She thought she had everything under control, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated the man she'd been lying to for months. The next morning, I went through the motions of normal life with the precision of someone defusing a bomb. Coffee for 2. Toast with strawberry jam, the way Lisa likes it. Small talk about the weather and our plans for the day. "I've got 3 cars coming in this morning," I told her over breakfast. The Henderson's Honda, plus that Chevy pickup with the transmission problems. Lisa murmured, scrolling through her phone. Probably texting David, I realized. The thought should have made me angry, but instead, I felt oddly detached, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. "What about you? Busy day at the office?" "The usual. We're trying to close the Morrison deal this week, so there might be some late meetings." I nodded and sipped my coffee. The Morrison deal. I wondered if that was even real, or just another convenient excuse for David-related activities. After Lisa left for work, I spent an hour researching David Aldridge online. It wasn't hard to find him. He worked for a consulting firm in Cleveland, had a LinkedIn profile full of corporate buzzwords, and maintained a Facebook account with privacy settings that weren't nearly as secure as he probably thought. David was handsome in a generic way. Tall, well-dressed, the kind of smile that belonged in stock photos advertising financial services. His profile listed him as single, which at least meant Lisa wasn't helping him cheat on someone else. Small comfort, but I'd take it. More importantly, his Facebook activity painted a picture of someone who was active on social media, responsive to messages, and trusting enough to accept friend requests from people he didn't know well. Perfect. I spent the morning creating a new email account and Facebook profile. The name I chose was Gary Thompson, generic enough to be forgettable, but real-sounding enough to pass casual scrutiny. I used a stock photo of a middle-aged man in casual clothes, someone who looked friendly but unremarkable. Gary Thompson's backstory was simple. Divorced dad from Pittsburgh, worked in sales, enjoyed fishing and classic rock. I populated his profile with a few innocuous posts about sports and weather, added some random people as friends to make the account look established, and then sent David Aldridge a friend request with a message. "Hey David, I think we met briefly at the regional sales conference in Columbus last month. You were talking about that consulting project in the automotive sector. Would love to connect and maybe chat about potential collaboration opportunities. Thanks. Gary." I sent the message Tuesday afternoon and had a response by Wednesday morning. "Gary, good to hear from you. I remember our conversation. You were the one asking about supply chain optimization, right? Always happy to connect with fellow sales professionals. Looking forward to staying in touch." David had accepted my friend request and opened the door to further communication. Step 1 complete. Over the next few days, I established a rapport with David through casual messages. Gary Thompson was everything Ward Mitchell wasn't: outgoing, ambitious, full of ideas about business opportunities and networking strategies. David responded enthusiastically to this fictional person who seemed to share his worldview. Meanwhile, at home, I continued my careful observation of Lisa's behavior. Now that I knew what to watch for, the signs were everywhere. She'd started working out more consistently, saying she wanted to get in better shape for summer. She'd bought new clothes, more revealing, more stylish, and was paying far more attention to her appearance overall. She was preparing to be someone else's wife. The confirmation came Thursday evening, when I overheard half of a phone conversation she thought I couldn't hear. I know, baby. I miss you too. No, he doesn't suspect anything. The kids are going to my sister's next weekend, remember? So we'll have the whole time to ourselves. I can't wait to see the apartment you found. I was in the garage, supposedly working on an engine rebuild, but I'd positioned myself where I could hear her voice through the kitchen window. She thought she was being discreet, but sound carries in our neighborhood, especially on quiet evenings. 3 months feels like forever, but you're right. We need to do this properly. I want to tell him after Emma's graduation. It seems cruel to ruin that for her. Emma's graduation was in 2 weeks, so that was Lisa's timeline. She'd wait until our daughter finished high school, then drop the bomb about David and Cleveland and her new life. How considerate of her. That night, Gary Thompson sent David another message. Hope you don't mind me asking, but you seem like you're in a really good place lately. Your posts have been really positive. New job opportunity or something? David's response came quickly. Apparently, Gary had hit on a topic he was eager to discuss. Actually, yeah, big changes coming up in my personal life. I'm getting married in a few months, really excited about it. That's fantastic. Congratulations, man. Tell me about her. How did you two meet? And just like that, David began telling Gary Thompson all about his relationship with Lisa, how they'd met through a mutual business contact, how they'd been conducting a long-distance relationship for almost a year, how Lisa was planning to relocate to Cleveland after her daughter graduated high school. He talked freely, comfortably, the way people do when they believe they're speaking to a neutral third party, someone who has no reason to judge or question their version of events. She's incredible, Gary. Smart, ambitious, beautiful. We just click, you know? I've never felt this way about anyone before. There was enthusiasm in his words, the kind that comes from living inside a carefully curated narrative where everything makes sense and nothing is inconvenient. Sounds amazing. She's lucky to have found someone who appreciates her. Gary's response was warm, affirming, exactly what David expected to hear. It encouraged him to keep talking, to keep opening doors. Thanks, man. Actually, she's been going through a rough patch with her current situation. She's married, but it's been over for a long time. They're more like roommates at this point. Her husband is a nice enough guy, but they want completely different things out of life. He wrote it casually, almost kindly, as if reducing a marriage to a stale living arrangement somehow made the betrayal cleaner, more acceptable. I stared at the screen, reading David's casual dismissal of my marriage, my life, my worth as a human being. He flattened years of shared history into a convenient paragraph. He made it sound like Lisa was doing me a favor by leaving. Like I should be grateful to be set free from a relationship that was apparently holding her back from her true potential. That's tough, Gary replied. Divorce is never easy, especially when there are kids involved. Sympathetic, reasonable, exactly the tone David wanted. Yeah, Lisa's worried about that part. But kids are resilient, right? And it's not like her husband is a bad father or anything. He'll still be in their lives. Lisa thinks it might actually be better for everyone in the long run. Better for everyone. A phrase people love to use when they've already decided whose comfort matters most. I wondered if anyone had bothered to ask me about that, or if I was just another logistical detail to be managed, like movers or school transfers. Over the following week, Gary Thompson became David's unofficial relationship counselor. Their conversations grew longer, more frequent. David shared details about his plans with Lisa, his concerns about the logistics of her move, his excitement about introducing her to his family and friends in Cleveland. He talked about houses they'd browsed online, neighborhoods he thought she'd like, how different her life would be once she finally left me behind. And slowly, carefully, Gary began planting seeds of doubt. Not accusations, not confrontations, just questions, the kind that seem harmless until they start stacking up. Wow, a year-long relationship while she's still married? That must have been complicated. Complicated was an understatement, but David brushed it off at first. Have you met her kids yet? That's got to be a big step. That one lingered longer than the others. Long distance is tough. How often do you two actually get to spend time together in person? Each question nudged David slightly off balance, forcing him to look at the edges of the story he'd been telling himself. David's responses revealed the cracks in his fairy tale romance. He and Lisa had only met face to face a dozen times over the course of their relationship. He'd never met Emma or Jake, never even seen photos of them. Lisa had been vague about her timeline for leaving me, pushing back their engagement announcement several times, always with reasonable explanations, always with another delay. Sometimes I wonder if she's really ready to make this change, David admitted to Gary during one late-night message exchange. She says she wants to be with me, but she keeps finding reasons to delay things. The confidence in his earlier messages was thinning now, replaced by uncertainty he didn't quite know how to name. Cold feet, maybe? It's a big decision. Gary didn't push. He let David arrive there himself. Maybe. Or maybe she's not being completely honest with me about her situation at home. That sentence mattered. It was the first time David had allowed the possibility that the version of Lisa he knew might be incomplete. Gary Thompson agreed that honesty was the foundation of any good relationship. He talked about trust, about transparency, about how secrets have a way of surfacing at the worst possible times. He suggested that David might want to get a clearer picture of what he was getting into before making such a major commitment. "Have you ever thought about reaching out to her husband directly?" Gary asked. "I mean, if they're really just roommates going through the motions, he might actually be relieved to know someone else is willing to take responsibility for making Lisa happy." It was a risky suggestion, and David knew it. The idea sat there, dangerous and tempting. But I'd been building up to it for days, guiding the conversation gently in that direction. David was starting to have doubts about Lisa's honesty and commitment. He was beginning to wonder if there were things about her situation that she wasn't telling him. "I don't know, Gary. That seems like it could backfire pretty spectacularly." "Maybe. But think about it. If Lisa's being straight with you about her marriage being over, then her husband probably already knows she's unhappy. He might appreciate knowing that she has a plan and a future lined up. It could make the whole divorce process smoother for everyone. And if she's not being straight with me, then you'd want to know that before you rearrange your whole life for her, right?" David didn't respond immediately. I could practically feel him wrestling with the decision through the screen. 3 days later, I got a Facebook message from David Aldridge. Not to Gary Thompson, but to Ward Mitchell. "Hi, Ward. I know this is going to sound strange, but I think we need to talk. It's about Lisa." I stared at that message for a long time before responding. This was it. The moment when everything would either fall into place or explode in my face. "I think you're right," I typed back. "We definitely need to talk." The trap was set. Now I just had to spring it. David wanted to meet in person, which surprised me. I'd expected phone calls or more Facebook messages, not a face-to-face confrontation in some neutral location. But when he suggested meeting halfway between our cities at a diner off Interstate 80, I agreed immediately. The drive to Clarion, Pennsylvania took 2 hours. I spent most of it rehearsing what I was going to say, how I was going to handle seeing the man who'd been planning to steal my wife. By the time I pulled into the parking lot of Mel's family restaurant, my hands were steady and my mind was clear. I recognized David immediately from his photos, though he looked more nervous in person. He'd claimed a corner booth and was nursing a cup of coffee, checking his phone every few seconds. When I walked over and introduced myself, he stood up awkwardly and offered a handshake. "Ward, thanks for agreeing to meet. This is, well, it's probably the weirdest situation I've ever been in." "Join the club," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. We ordered coffee and spent a few minutes making uncomfortable small talk about the drive, the weather, the restaurant's retro decor. Finally, David cleared his throat and got to the point. "Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you, because I think we're both being played here." "I'm listening." "Lisa and I have been seeing each other for almost a year. She told me her marriage was over, that you two were basically just cohabitating for the sake of the kids. She said you'd grown apart and that you both knew it was time to move on. I sipped my coffee and waited for him to continue. But lately, I've been wondering if she's been entirely truthful with me about everything. Some things she's told me don't add up. And when I started thinking about it from your perspective, I realized you might not even know I exist. I didn't until a few weeks ago. David's shoulders sagged with relief. So she hasn't talked to you about wanting a divorce? About being unhappy? Not a word. As far as I knew, we were working through the normal challenges of an 18-year marriage. I thought we were solid. Jesus. David rubbed his face with both hands. She's been lying to both of us. I could have let him believe it was that simple, that Lisa was just a manipulative woman playing two men against each other. But I wanted David to understand the full scope of what she'd been doing. It's worse than that, I said. She's not just lying about her feelings or her intentions. She's been living a completely double life. I pulled out my phone and showed him screenshots I'd taken of Lisa's messages. Her complaints about my lack of ambition. Her excitement about moving to Cleveland. Her detailed plans for introducing Emma and Jake to their new stepfather. David's face went pale as he scrolled through the evidence. She talks about you like you're already divorced, he said quietly. And she talks about me like I'm a minor inconvenience that will resolve itself once she finds the courage to ask for what she wants. But she never asked. Never even hinted. David, 3 weeks ago, I thought my biggest problem was a slow leak in the garage roof. I had no idea my wife was planning to leave me, take my kids to another state, and marry someone else. David set the phone down and stared at his coffee. She's been planning this for months, maybe longer. The weekend trips to help her sick mother, those were visits to see you. Yeah, and I thought she was being considerate, taking things slow because divorce is complicated. She was taking things slow because she hadn't figured out how to blow up my life yet. We sat in silence for a while, both processing the magnitude of Lisa's deception. Finally, David looked up at me with something like determination in his eyes. What do we do about this? We. Look, Ward, I know I'm not the innocent party here. I've been having a relationship with your wife, but I genuinely believed she was available, that you two had already had the hard conversations and were just working out the logistics. If I'd known she was lying to you, what would you have done differently? David considered this. I would have told her to have an honest conversation with you before we went any further. I don't want to be the guy who breaks up a marriage. I want to be with someone who chooses me freely, not someone who's running away from problems she's too scared to face. I studied his face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation, but David seemed genuinely shaken by what he'd learned. He'd fallen for Lisa's version of reality just as completely as I had, and now he was grappling with the fact that the woman he wanted to marry was capable of this level of sustained dishonesty. So, what do you want to do? I asked. I want her to face the consequences of what she's done. To both of us. Meaning? David leaned forward, and I saw something cold and calculating in his expression. She's been playing us against each other without either of us knowing the game existed. I think it's time we started playing back. I'm listening. She thinks she's in control of this situation. She's managing the timeline, managing the information flow, managing both of our expectations. What if we took that control away from her? I felt a smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. What did you have in mind? Over the next hour, David and I planned Lisa's downfall with the methodical precision of a military operation. We compared our knowledge of her schedule, her habits, her weaknesses. We identified the lies she'd told each of us and figured out how to use those contradictions against her. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Lisa had been living two separate
my house! You bastard!
Relax, man. It's just business.
Please, don't shoot!
Get off!
You won't do it. You don't have the guts.
Don't! Please don't shoot him! Please! I'm begging you! Don't do this! No! Please, no!
Separate lives, carefully keeping them from intersecting. We were going to force those lives to collide in the most public, humiliating way possible. She's supposed to come see me this weekend, David said. Another visit to help her mother trip. Cancel it. What? Tell her you're sick, or you have a work emergency or whatever. Make her stay home. Then we'll implement phase 1. David nodded slowly. What's phase 1? We're going to make her think she's losing her mind. I explained the psychological warfare tactics I had in mind. Identical text messages sent simultaneously from both our phones, references to conversations she'd had with one of us, mentioned by the other, small details about her life that she'd shared with David, casually brought up by me at home. The goal is to make her paranoid and confused before we reveal what we know, I said. She needs to understand that her careful compartmentalization has failed completely. And phase 2? Phase 2 is where we destroy her publicly. David raised an eyebrows. How public are we talking? Lisa's built her whole identity around being the successful, put-together woman who has everything under control. Her job, her social circle, her family, they all see her as someone who makes smart decisions and handles problems maturely. Okay. What happens when they find out she's been conducting a secret affair for a year while lying to everyone about her intentions? David's smile was sharp and satisfied. Her reputation implodes. Exactly. And phase 3 is where we make sure she can't just run away to Cleveland and start over like nothing happened. I'm almost afraid to ask. Simple. You're going to break up with her. Publicly, in front of everyone she knows, and you're going to make it clear that you're doing it because she's a liar and a manipulator who can't be trusted. David was quiet for a long moment, considering the cruelty of what I was proposing. Finally, he nodded. She destroyed my trust in her, he said. She made me an unwitting participant in wrecking your marriage. She's been lying to both of us for months while making plans that would have turned our lives upside down. And she thought we'd never find out. She thought we were both too stupid or too passive to compare notes. I raised my coffee cup in a mock toast to proving her wrong. David clinked his cup against mine, to making her pay. We spent another hour working out the details, exchanging phone numbers, and synchronizing our watches like we were planning a heist. By the time we parted ways in that diner parking lot, Lisa's fate was sealed. She'd wanted to play games with our lives. Now she was about to learn what happens when the players decide to change the rules. The drive home gave me time to think about what I was doing. Some part of me wondered if I was going too far, if there was a way to handle this situation with more dignity and less vindictiveness. But then I remembered Lisa's messages to David, her casual dismissal of our marriage, her assumption that I'd just accept whatever she decided to do with our family. She'd made her choices. Now she'd have to live with the consequences. I pulled into my driveway just as Lisa was getting home from work. She waved cheerfully and waited for me to get out of my car. "How was your day?" she asked. The same question she'd asked thousands of times over the years. "Productive," I said. "Very productive. How about you?" "Oh, the usual chaos. But I think we're finally making progress on the Morrison deal." I nodded and smiled, playing the role of the oblivious husband for what I knew would be the last time. "That's great, honey. I'm proud of you." Lisa beamed at the compliment, completely unaware that her world was about to come crashing down around her. Phase 1 would begin tomorrow. Lisa's phone buzzed at exactly 9:17 a.m. while she was pouring her second cup of coffee. I know the precise time because I was watching from the garage, where I'd positioned myself to observe her morning routine. The message was from David. Thinking about you. Can't wait to hold you again. 30 seconds later, her phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from me. Thinking about you. Can't wait to hold you again. I watched through the kitchen window as Lisa stared at her phone, confusion flickering across her face. She read both messages twice, then looked around as if trying to make sense of what she was seeing. She typed a response to David. "That's sweet, but you just sent the same message twice." His reply came immediately. "I only sent one message. Are you feeling okay?" Lisa's frown deepened. She checked her message thread with me, saw the identical text, and her face went pale. I could practically see the gears turning in her head, trying to figure out how her husband and her lover had sent her exactly the same words at exactly the same time. She never considered the possibility that we were coordinating. Over the next 3 days, David and I kept up the psychological pressure. We'd send her matching messages about mundane topics, comments about the weather, questions about her day, random observations about current events. Sometimes we'd time them to arrive simultaneously. Other times we'd space them out by a few minutes, just enough to make her think she was experiencing déjà vu. The effect was exactly what I'd hoped for. Lisa became jumpy and distracted, constantly checking her phone and looking confused by what she found there. She started making small mistakes, forgetting appointments, misplacing her keys, losing track of conversations midway through. "Are you feeling all right?" I asked her Thursday evening, after she'd spent 10 minutes looking for reading glasses that were sitting on top of her head. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Just tired, work's been stressful. Maybe you should take a long weekend, get some rest. Actually, I was thinking about visiting my mother this weekend. She's been having some health issues again." I nodded sympathetically, knowing that David had already canceled their planned meeting. Lisa was about to discover that her carefully constructed excuse no longer worked. "That's thoughtful of you. I'm sure she'll appreciate the company." Friday morning, Lisa packed her overnight bag and headed north toward Albany, just like she had dozens of times before. But this time, instead of meeting David at some romantic hideaway, she was driving toward a confrontation with her own lies. David had planned it perfectly. He waited until Lisa was an hour into her drive, then sent her a text. "Hey, I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to be able to see you this weekend. Came down with some kind of flu bug, and I don't want to get you sick. Rain check?" Lisa called him immediately. I know this because David was keeping me updated on every step of their conversation. "What do you mean you're sick?" Lisa's voice was apparently sharp with panic. "I'm already on my way. I told Ward I was visiting my mother." "I'm sorry, babe. It came on suddenly. I feel terrible about the timing. But I can't just turn around and go home. He'll know something's up. So actually visit your mother." There was a long pause. "David, my mother doesn't actually expect me. She doesn't even know I'm coming." "What do you mean?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I mean, I haven't been visiting my mother on these weekends. I've been coming to see you." "Lisa, where does your family think you've been going?" "To see my sick mother in Albany." "And where does your mother think you've been?" Silence. "Lisa, where does your mother think you've been?" She doesn't know about these trips." David let that sink in before responding. "So you've been lying to everyone. Your husband, your kids, your mother, everyone." "It's not like that. I needed to keep things simple until we figured out our timeline." "Our timeline for what?" "For when I'm going to leave Ward and move to Cleveland with you." "Lisa, we've never discussed you moving to Cleveland." Another long silence. Then Lisa's voice, smaller now. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've talked about getting married, but we've never made specific plans about where we'd live or when you'd leave your husband. Those are pretty big assumptions to make without consulting me. I could picture Lisa sitting in her car on the side of some highway, her carefully constructed fantasy crumbling around her. She'd been so confident in her ability to manage both relationships that she'd never considered what would happen if her two worlds started comparing notes. The conversation ended with David telling Lisa he needed time to think about their relationship, and Lisa driving home 3 hours earlier than planned with no explanation for her family. I was waiting in the garage when she pulled into the driveway. Through the kitchen window, I watched her sit in her car for 10 minutes, staring at nothing, before finally coming inside. "You're back early," I observed. "How's your mother?" She's fine. Better than I expected, actually. So I decided to come home and spend the evening with my family. Lisa's smile was brittle and forced. She looked like someone trying very hard not to fall apart. "That's nice. I was just thinking we don't spend enough quality time together anymore." Something in my tone must have caught her attention, because she looked at me sharply. "What do you mean?" "Nothing specific. Just that we seem to be living parallel lives lately. You're always busy with work or family obligations. I'm always in the garage. We barely talk about anything substantial anymore." "That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time we had a real conversation about our future together? Our plans, our dreams, what we want out of the next phase of our lives?" Lisa's face went white. "Ward, I'm not criticizing you," I said gently. "I'm just saying, maybe we should make more effort to connect, to be honest with each other about what we're thinking and feeling. Honest. Completely honest. No secrets, no hidden agendas. Just two people who've been married for 18 years, figuring out how to make the next 18 even better." Lisa stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to decide whether this was some kind of trap. Finally, she nodded. "You're right. We should talk more. Be more open with each other." "I'm glad you feel that way. Because there are some things I've been wanting to discuss with you." "Like what?" I smiled. "Well, for starters, I've been thinking about making some changes in my life. Big changes. The kind that would affect both of us." "What kind of changes?" "I'll tell you tomorrow, after I've had a chance to organize my thoughts properly." Lisa nodded, but I could see the anxiety in her eyes. She was starting to realize that her world was shifting in ways she couldn't control or predict. That night, she barely slept. I could feel her tossing and turning beside me, her mind racing through possibilities and worst-case scenarios. Every time her phone buzzed with a message, she'd tense up like she was expecting bad news. She was right to be worried. The psychological warfare had served its purpose. Lisa was off balance, paranoid, and starting to question her own ability to manage the situation. Now it was time for phase 2. Saturday morning, I made breakfast for the whole family. Pancakes, bacon, fresh fruit, the works. Emma and Jake were delighted by the unexpected feast, but Lisa just picked at her food and checked her phone obsessively. "So," I said cheerfully, "I've been thinking we should throw a party." Lisa looked up sharply. "A party?" "Yeah. It's been too long since we've had friends over. Maybe we could do a barbecue next weekend. Invite some of your work colleagues, some of the neighbors, maybe some family." "I don't think that's a good idea right now." "Why not? It would be fun. We could show everyone how solid we are as a couple, how happy we are together." Lisa's fork clattered against her plate. "Ward, can we talk about this later? I'm not really in a party planning mood right now." "Of course, no pressure. I just thought it would be nice to celebrate our relationship publicly, show everyone how much we love and trust each other." The word trust hit her like a physical blow. Lisa excused herself from the table and disappeared upstairs, claiming she had a headache. An hour later, her phone rang. It was David. I know this because David and I had planned the call. While Lisa was upstairs having what she thought was a private conversation with her lover, I was in the garage listening to David's half of the conversation through my own phone. Lisa, we need to talk about what happened yesterday. I know. I'm sorry about the confusion with my mother. I can explain. It's not just about your mother. It's about everything. I've been thinking about our relationship, and I'm starting to realize there are a lot of things that don't add up. What do you mean? I think you've been lying to me about your situation at home. And if you've been lying about that, what else haven't you been honest about? David, I love you. Everything I've told you about my feelings is true. But everything you've told me about your marriage isn't true, is it? You're not separated. You're not planning to divorce your husband. You're just having an affair and hoping it works out somehow. That's not fair. What's not fair is letting me believe I was starting a relationship with someone who was available when you're actually still very much married to someone else. I am going to leave him. I just need more time to figure out how. How much more time, Lisa? Because I'm 36 years old, and I don't want to spend the next 5 years being someone's secret while you work up the courage to have an honest conversation with your husband. There was a long pause. Then Lisa's voice, desperate now. What are you saying? I'm saying I think we should take a break. Figure out what we really want before this goes any further. David, please, don't do this. I need you. What you need is to decide what kind of person you want to be. Someone who faces problems honestly, or someone who runs away from them and hopes they'll solve themselves. I'm not running away. Aren't you? You've been lying to your husband for a year. You've been lying to your kids, your mother, your friends. You've been lying to me about the reality of your situation. That sounds like running away to me. The conversation ended with David telling Lisa he'd call her in a few days after they'd both had time to think. I heard her phone hit the floor, followed by the sound of muffled sobbing. Phase 2 was complete. Lisa's secret relationship was imploding, and she had no idea that her husband was orchestrating the whole thing. Now came the fun part. Phase 3 would destroy what was left of her carefully constructed life, and she'd never see it coming. Emma's graduation party was exactly the kind of event Lisa normally loved, a chance to play the role of the successful, supportive mother surrounded by family and friends. She'd spent weeks planning it, sending invitations, coordinating with caterers, making sure every detail was perfect. She obsessed over seating arrangements, menu options, even the background music, wanting everything to project warmth, stability, and success. To her, events like this weren't just celebrations. They were performances, carefully staged confirmations that her life was exactly as polished as it appeared from the outside. She had no idea she was planning her own public humiliation. The party was scheduled for Saturday afternoon in our backyard, timed perfectly to catch the soft daylight and early summer breeze. Lisa had invited everyone, her colleagues from work, neighbors, family members, Emma's friends, and their parents. About 60 people total, all gathered to celebrate our daughter's achievement and admire what appeared to be a happy, stable family. Laughter floated through the yard, glasses clinked, and compliments were exchanged freely. From a distance, it looked like a picture-perfect suburban success story. David arrived at 2 p.m., exactly as we'd planned. I was manning the grill when I saw him walk through the gate, and I had to admire his timing. He didn't rush or hesitate, just walked in calmly, dressed neatly, confident without being flashy. Lisa was in the middle of a conversation with her boss and 2 co-workers, playing the part of the devoted wife and mother, smiling easily, gesturing animatedly as she spoke. She looked relaxed and confident for the first time in days, basking in approval and attention. That was about to change. "Excuse me," David said, approaching the group. "I'm looking for Lisa Mitchell?" Lisa turned around, and her face went completely white. The color drained from her so fast, it was almost surreal, like watching a switch flip. For a moment, I thought she might faint, her hand tightening instinctively around her glass, as if it were the only thing holding her upright. "I'm Lisa," she managed to say, forcing the words out through lips that suddenly seemed too dry. "David Aldridge," he said, extending his hand. We've been corresponding online about some business matters. I was in the area and thought I'd stop by to introduce myself properly. Lisa's boss, Margaret, smiled approvingly, clearly pleased by the sound of professionalism. How wonderful! Lisa's always so professional in her communications. I'm sure whatever project you two are working on will be a great success. Oh, we're not working on a business project, David said pleasantly, his tone light, almost casual. Actually, Lisa and I have been planning a wedding. The silence that followed was deafening. It swallowed the yard whole. Margaret's smile froze mid-expression, stuck somewhere between approval and confusion. Lisa's co-workers exchanged baffled glances, their polite interest turning into visible discomfort. Several nearby conversations stopped entirely as people turned to listen, sensing that something had gone very wrong. "I'm sorry," Margaret said slowly, her voice careful now. "Did you say a wedding?" "That's right. Lisa and I got engaged about 6 months ago. We've been planning a lovely ceremony in Cleveland for this fall." Lisa found her voice, though it sounded thin and brittle. "David, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to meet your family," he said innocently, looking around at the crowd. "After all, if I'm going to be Emma and Jake's stepfather, I should probably introduce myself, don't you think?" The crowd was growing now. More people drifted closer, curiosity pulling them in like gravity. Faces showed disbelief, confusion, fascination. This strange man was calmly claiming to be engaged to someone who was obviously already married, and no one quite knew how to react. "Lisa," Margaret said carefully, her tone shifting into something professional and guarded, "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," David said cheerfully. "Lisa and I have been planning our future together for almost a year now, haven't we, sweetheart?" He pulled out his phone and started showing photos to the crowd, angling the screen so multiple people could see. Pictures of Lisa wearing the engagement ring, screenshots of their text conversations about wedding venues, guest lists, timelines, messages where Lisa talked openly about leaving her husband and starting fresh in Cleveland, full of excitement and certainty. "This is Lisa at the restaurant where I proposed," David explained, scrolling calmly, narrating each image. "And here's the apartment we picked out together. She's so excited about the move." I could see Lisa's world collapsing in real time. Her carefully constructed image shattered piece by piece, each photo another crack spreading outward. Her boss was staring at her with a mixture of shock and disgust, no longer bothering to hide it. Her co-workers were whispering urgently to each other, eyes darting between Lisa and their phones. The neighbors were filming everything with their phones, capturing every second of the moment she could never undo. "Lisa," I said, walking over with a plate of hamburgers, "aren't you going to introduce me to your fiancé?" The crowd turned to look at me, confusion evident on every face. Here was Lisa's husband, apparently calm and friendly, talking about her fiancé like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Ward," Lisa whispered, "I can explain." "Explain what? That you've been planning to leave me for another man while pretending everything was fine? That you've been lying to everyone here about who you really are and what you really want?" I turned to address the crowd directly. "Folks, I want you all to know that Lisa and I are getting divorced. She's found someone who makes her happier than I ever could, and I think that's wonderful. David seems like a great guy." David smiled and nodded. "Thanks, Ward. I really appreciate your understanding. Not every man would be so mature about this situation." "Of course," I continued. "I did think it was a little strange that Lisa never mentioned the divorce to any of you, or the engagement, or the fact that she's been living a completely secret life for the past year." Margaret stepped forward. "Lisa, is this true? You've been engaged to someone else while we all thought you were happily married?" Lisa looked around desperately, trying to find a friendly face in the crowd, but everyone was staring at her with expressions ranging from shock to disgust to morbid fascination. It's not what it looks like, she said weakly. What does it look like? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been conducting an affair while lying to everyone about your intentions. It looks like you've been making plans to abandon your family without having the courage to discuss it with anyone involved. Ward, please. Please what? Please keep pretending I don't know about your secret Facebook account? Please keep acting like I believe your stories about visiting your sick mother? Please keep enabling your lies so you don't have to face the consequences of your choices? The crowd was completely silent now, transfixed by the drama unfolding in front of them. This was better than any soap opera, and it was happening right in their neighborhood. David cleared his throat. Actually, Ward, there's something else you should know. He turned to Lisa with an expression of cold satisfaction. I've been thinking about our relationship, Lisa, and I've realized that I can't marry someone I don't trust, someone who's capable of lying to everyone in her life for months without showing any remorse. Lisa's face crumpled. David, no. Please. I'm sorry, but it's over. I thought I was falling in love with someone honest and straightforward, someone who was brave enough to go after what she wanted. Instead, I found out I was involved with someone who's too cowardly to have an honest conversation with her own husband. He handed her a small jewelry box. I think this belongs to you. Consider it a parting gift. Lisa opened the box with shaking hands. Inside was the engagement ring she'd been wearing in secret for months. I don't want it, she whispered. Keep it anyway, as a reminder of what happens when you try to build a relationship on lies. David turned to me and shook my hand. Ward, I'm sorry for my part in this mess. If I'd known she was lying to you about her intentions, I never would have gotten involved. I appreciate that, I said, and I hope you find someone who deserves you. David nodded to the crowd and walked away, leaving Lisa standing in the middle of her daughter's graduation party, holding an engagement ring from a man who'd just publicly rejected her. The silence stretched on until Margaret finally spoke. Lisa, I think you should take some time off work to sort out your personal situation. Margaret, please, I can explain everything. I don't think explanations are going to help at this point. What you've done, the level of deception involved, it raises serious questions about your judgment and your character. Margaret turned to leave, then stopped. We'll discuss your employment status on Monday, but I have to tell you, Lisa, this kind of behavior doesn't reflect well on our company's values. One by one, the guests began to leave. Some offered awkward condolences to me and Emma. Others just slipped away quietly, eager to escape the uncomfortable scene. Within an hour, the backyard was empty except for immediate family. Emma was crying, not because her party had been ruined, but because she'd just learned that her mother had been planning to take her away from everything she knew without discussing it with her first. How could you do this to us? Emma asked Lisa. How could you make plans to move us to Cleveland without even asking how we felt about it? Jake just stared at his mother like he was seeing her for the first time. Were you really going to leave Dad? Lisa tried to explain, tried to justify her actions, tried to make her children understand that she'd been planning to do what was best for everyone, but her words sounded hollow and selfish, even to her own ears. Finally, she gave up and went inside, leaving me alone with Emma and Jake. Is she really leaving? Jake asked. I don't know, I said honestly. That's up to her. Do you want her to leave? I considered the question carefully. A month ago, the answer would have been an automatic no. But now, after everything I'd learned about who Lisa really was beneath the surface, I wasn't sure our marriage was worth saving. I want your mother to be happy, I said finally. And I want you two to be happy. We'll figure out how to make that work, whatever happens. Emma wiped her eyes and looked toward the house. I don't think I can trust her anymore. Trust takes time to rebuild, I said. Maybe she'll earn it back. Maybe she won't. But that's her choice to make. That evening, after the kids had gone to their rooms, Lisa came out to the backyard where I was cleaning up the remnants of the party. I suppose you're proud of yourself, she said. Not particularly. I'm just glad the truth is finally out in the open. You destroyed my life today. No, Lisa, you destroyed your own life. I just made sure everyone could see what you'd been doing in secret. She was quiet for a long time, staring at the engagement ring she was still holding. What happens now? She asked. Now you decide who you want to be. The person who takes responsibility for her choices and tries to make amends, or the person who blames everyone else for the consequences of her own actions. And us? What happens to our marriage? I looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to find some trace of the woman I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. But all I could see was a stranger who'd been living in my house, eating at my table, and lying to my face for months. I don't think there is an us anymore, I said. I think there's just two people who used to be married, trying to figure out how to co-parent their children with some dignity. Lisa nodded slowly, and for the first time in weeks, she looked like she understood the full scope of what she'd lost. I never meant for it to happen this way, she said. But it did happen this way, and now we all have to live with the consequences. She went inside without another word, and I finished cleaning up alone. The party was over, the guests had gone home, and my marriage was officially finished. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. The lies were over, the secrets were out in the open, and everyone finally knew exactly where they stood. It wasn't the